2002, not the current year, 20 years ago, almost. The SARS coronavirus in China officially only killed 774 people after the virus spread from bats to civets in a similar wet market situation, but not pointing any fingers. 2012, 10 years later. The story goes that in a remote village called Tongguan, within Mojiang County, Yunnan province, that's like a state, China, a country, at a location 1,251 miles southwest of Wuhan, April 2nd, 42-year-old Liu, that's his name, Liu, began his 2 weeks inside of a copper mine shaft. It was a disused or, dead one. And he worked 150 meters deep, that's almost 500 feet, in the side of a hill. And his job was, and this is literally the consistent story, to scrub the walls of a mine. And it had a name at the time called Bengpinghe Copper Mine. That's the only time I've been able to find the name of it. And something very magical happens when you type that in and Google's map search accidentally tries to correct the name. As long as you're hovering over the same area, again, Tongguan. That's the series you have to do in the map. Go to Tongguan, Mojiang County, Yunnan, China. But anyway, he scrubbed walls until April 16th because he and others began to become sick. By April 26th, he was admitted to a hospital running a high fever, coughing up rust-colored mucus and clots of blood. The description of what he was cleaning up was bat, urine, and fecal material, guano, not rats. And he was scrubbing walls. And it's supposed to be in Tongguan, but it's named Bengpinghe, or Bengpinghe. By May 4th, his 5 colleagues, other mine cleaners, were admitted as well. And it should be pointed out that the pathway from where they're supposed to be on the map and where that hospital is, there's 2 other hospitals in a string that you could go to. It's actually kind of an angle like that are about 100 kilometers apart from each other. And they had all 6 of the people, there were 6 of them sick, had immune cell depletion problems in their blood. The chest x-rays showed lungs filling with fluid. Within weeks, Liu and 3 others died, and later analysis of stored blood samples didn't show exactly what had killed them or infected them. But the problem with this is that when you look up the actual paperwork and translate it, especially if you get the paperwork smuggled out, which we can see now, you find out that 4 of them tested positive for antibodies that were generic, that were capable of helping them fight 2002 SARS, or a variant of SARS. And very importantly, it is mentioned that they had prior experience with some sort of viral infection, meaning they probably were exposed to SARS and are not officially part of the 700 and some odd people who are supposed to have gotten it, maybe died from it. And that might have kept them from dying from this. Who knew? The next thing is, this is 2012, not 2019. Next thing is that 4 of them tested positive out of the 6. Also, new miners were brought in to keep scrubbing and cleaning that mine shaft. Or actually, not miners. The miners wouldn't go near it. It was closed, at the time. And it was totally at Tongguan in Mojiang County. It was assumed to be Mojiang virus, a new virus that had been discovered right after this, Moj-V, or officially Mojiang henipavirus, the only henipavirus that infects rodents instead of bats, apparently. This is based on 4 rat samples only of their immune system responses, not necessarily the virus. They weren't able to isolate anything from the humans, but then again, at the time they didn't admit that the humans showed all signs of being exposed to some variant of SARS. 2013 to 2015, many groups of people went through this mine, checking for all sorts of things, studying bats. The mine was closed to entry except for this. And a tropical botanical garden scientist, biodiversity guys, ragtag group not related in any way to this, got permission to go in to collect bat fecal material by throwing a tarp down, assumedly because they were studying whether or not they could get, samples of what they ate. Totally not collecting virus samples. Others also did other work, obviously, with viruses. Through all of these groups, they gathered enough information to find 284 alpha coronaviruses and 9 beta coronaviruses, very unusual ones, for a total of almost 300 diverse coronaviruses that were isolated from the bat fecal material samples. The funny thing is that when they made notes about it, they made the notes that said exactly where it's supposed to be. It was supposed to be, again, Tongguan. But when you look up the GPS information, they didn't put it in GPS format, by the way. They put it in old school degree, minute, and seconds. Just type it and it'll work. It's right there. Just remove the strangely positioned odd character that looks like a period that's not supposed to be there. That keeps it from running through Google. It leads to a location that isn't labeled Tongguan. It leads to a location on the map that's noted as being called Bengpinghe. Wait a minute, the mine shaft was called Bengpinghe Copper Mine. That has to be a defect. It's 8 miles off. Right next to a little town, a little village that has no name on it anymore. It's an unnamed village. But for some reason, the little valley going up the hill is still listing Bengpinghe. The phonetic he stands for something like hill or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing spitwads. And now there's an interesting thing about this. It's almost exactly 8 miles southwest from where you're supposed to look at Tongguan. So let's continue. Typing in the name of the mine worked, but typing in the location was off by 8 miles, and it's up in the mountains where it's supposed to be. Coincidentally, if you go near any city there, you will get people, if they figure out that you might be looking for it, they'll scream, "This is not the town it's supposed to be in. We deny strongly." And they'll fuck with you. Interesting. Anyway, in order to make sure you get the accurate location, don't know if you know this, you have to add another 333 meters exactly, Chinese windage as we call it in China, north by northwest in many cases, in this case specifically, to find the actual location of whatever a GPS is pointing at, or a degree, minute, and seconds. And it's on a hill with a very suspicious clump of plants around it and a pile of dirt. Just saying. So, if you want to go find a petri dish, just a jump to your left. 2013, July 24th, specifically, a single collected bat fecal sample showed something called RA4991. That tells you how many samples that were taken. That's short for the name of the bat it was coming from that they guessed for. The cave was filled with dozens of them, I'm sure, different varieties. And it was sample number 4. It's almost 5,000 samples, but they only found 300 things, huh? Anyway, this specific one was lab redesignated. Not to be named after the bat, but to be called Bat Coronavirus Sample 4991. So we get through the sensors. And that was renamed later on after it got out of the country, as far as the data, as named after the bat, Tongguan, to make sure it was acceptable and consistent with the story, 2013. You know what? That RATG13, the bat name in Tongguan, maybe it should be renamed. What was the name of that place in the map we're not supposed to talk about again? Oh yeah, Bengpinghe, so that would be RABP13, which you might want to look up in Chinese. Anyway, it was sequenced and added to lab databases. As a SARS-like beta coronavirus, it was sequenced. But since all that was left after it, because it was a destructive sampling of what they could get, All that's left was chunks of the virus, which were also resequenced as much as possible, and the data was collected. The completed version was never a DNA sample. From that day forward, it was a database file. There were other samples taken, but again, they were destroyed because it was a rather unusual one back in 2013. Rather hard to find. Out of 5,000 samples, they only got one. It only takes one. Ask that poor old man. The database included at the Wuhan lab also had it. The Wuhan lab never had a physical sample of this virus in the building because they weren't able to get enough samples to have extras. So they did careful sampling and sequencing, but it never left them with something to work with. I suppose they could synthesize something, but that's a bit of a stretch. Also, it wasn't considered important because there was 300 others, but there were 9 main ones that were beta viruses. Closest known relative, it was found later on in 2019 to be SARS-2. But remember, China never had another SARS outbreak or a mutation of it ever in 2012. And damn it, it had to be a virus that only attacks rats, not bats, because damn it, that has to be the story. And these mine people were sent down there to scrub a mine shaft for some reason for almost 500 feet. And when you look at the map, the name of the mine will give you the location, but the name of the city they say it was near won't. It's off by 8 miles. And if you shift it by 333 meters, you find a strange clump of dirt on a hill. But we ain't got no bats here. 13 of the initial 41 people found with coronavirus had no link with the market. 49 of the first 100 had a history of exposure to the market only. So it's about 50-50 shot. But originally, the majority of the people, 13 to 40, so a little less than 3/4 of them were exposed to the market. The virus was found in 33 out of 500 environmental samples taken at the wet market. Many wet markets sell exotic, endangered, and highly trafficked animals, such as pangolins. And remember, originally it was a civet with a bat. According to analysis, the most likely pattern, even though it doesn't seem to make sense, is SARS, our current SARS-2 coronavirus, originated from an intermediate horseshoe bat, then went through a Sudan, Malaysian, or Javan pangolin smuggled from Southeast Asia, then jumped back to the intermediate horseshoe bat again, and then that jumped to humans through some other source, contamination of food, or maybe from infecting a pangolin. Mojiang County, China, is directly on the smuggler path, like it's a straight line for where they take pangolins in from another country. The bats in China, the specific one, horseshoe bats, are exposed to the pangolins. These pangolins aren't exposed to the pangolins in China or any of the other creatures that could have acted as hosts. Bringing them into the country meant that these critters came in and brought into China virus that was only found in Malaysia in one of these. Their version of SARS for a pangolin doesn't hurt you and me, but it came across because they imported these animals. It's sad to note this, but I should make a note of it, that the reason they use pangolins for anything is to help with Chinese men having erectile dysfunction. So we may be having a bunch of people on this planet dying because somebody couldn't get it up. In the news, you're going to be hearing recently about this must have been done in a lab or something. But a bat cave produced thousands of samples and almost 300 different variations of viruses that had never been seen before in 2012. And one of them caused symptoms that not really anything at all like what we're dealing now. They just thought it was ordinary SARS in a country where they didn't have very many infections. And they still have the lowest incidence of deaths, according to their official statistics. And now if you try to go to that country, the maps are different. And I mean, they messed with the maps before, but now it's a little strange. But remember, it's totally had to have come from a Tongguan city, not from a place called Bengpinghe on the map that you can actually look up if you look up that wording. You have to be hovering over the area before you type that in, or it won't show you. Thanks for watching. Good day. Good luck.